Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be doing Get Started with ShareFile. My name is Greg Horrocks. I'm a customer success engineer here at ShareFile, and I'm joined by Ricardo Everson.
Hi, everyone. As Greg said, my name is Ricardo Everson. I've been with ShareFile for around 7.5 years, spending time on the tech support team, and now currently with the adoption team. So what we're looking at right now is the login page. There are essentially two different types of login pages you may see. Right now, this is known as a split login page. And because I'm seeing two different areas, the reason for this is this account is established to allow Active Directory credentials to log in, essentially SSO into the account. Normally your client users are just going to see the right side, and this will be the credentials they traditionally create through an activation email, which we're going to see here in a second. So I actually created one of these emails earlier, so I'm going to go into the email domain and show you what that looks like. So this is an email a client user would receive from an admin of a ShareFile account requesting them to join the account. So at this point, I would click on the Activate Account button. And as you can see, it's got my demographics listed here already. I've got my first name, my last name, the company. Creating this user, I added the company name. This is an optional field, so it doesn't necessarily need to be filled in. And then right now it's asking me for a mobile number so I can begin to set up my two-factor authentication. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter that. Once I have my code, I'll click verify. And now it's gonna allow me to create my password, making sure everything is matching and I have all my requirements. All checks are showing, so I'm gonna click save and sign in. And at this point, the client user has created their credentials. So if I were to log in as that user, I would need to enter that client user email and the password that I just created. There we go. And again, because I have two-factor enabled, it's asking me which device I want to send it to or how I want to receive that to my device. I'm going to choose text, wait for my code. There it is. And type it in, then click verify. And now I'm logged into a client portal. The client portal is going to have a very basic outlook. As you can see, I'm not seeing any folders here. I'm not seeing personal folders or shared folders because when I created this user, I didn't add them to any folders. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to log in through the admin view, and you will then see what it looks like to have personal and shared folders. Oh, let me log out of here first. There we go. So I am now in the admin side of things, and I do have the folder section showing here on the left. When you're logging in, one really important thing to take note of is the subdomain. And at the top here in my address bar, that first little description before .sharefile is the subdomain. You may be asked to enter this before logging in. It'll be one quick session, essentially asking you what account do you want to access. And at that point, it's asking you to enter the subdomain, and it's any description before the .sharefile. Sometimes it could be a little abbreviation of your company. It could be the company's entire name spelled out, but whatever is listed before that .sharefile, that will be what you want to enter. Now that I've logged in, you're directed to the dashboard, and this is a landing spot for the account. We have 4 tiles listed here, and we're able to edit these tiles, but a little bit about the tiles that you're seeing. The first one here is recent files, and this will show any files that you've previously touched to your login session. So next we have shortcuts. This allows you to navigate easier around the account. I can get to the option of sharing files quickly here or requesting a file. I can also navigate my personal files or shared folders from this particular location as well. So again, instead of having to go all the way over here to the left and choosing personal or shared, you can simply just come to this area and click right there or here, and it's going to take me to that area. The bottom left, we have tutorials. All right, so that's essentially the overview of the dashboard. Right now, I'm going to hand it over to Greg, and he can go into how we add users and establish user permissions.
So what we're going to jump into now is we're going to take a look at employee users versus client users. We'll create an employee user here, and we'll kind of explain the difference between the employee and the client. So employee users, these are licensed users. So if you create an employee user, it's going to use one license. Client users are not licensed, but like Ricardo said, they're limited in what options they have. It's really for collaborating with clients. They're not going to be able to do the normal functions that an employee user would in the account. So one way you can create an employee user is manually. So you can go to Browse Employees, Create Employee, and we're going to give this guy a name here. And so here you can actually add more than one employee user at a time. And kind of backtracking, there are multiple ways to create employee users. If you wanted to use like an Active Directory domain, you could do that. But for this demo, we're going to actually just create them manually in the ShareFile web client. So step 2 here, we have user settings. So basically, these are permissions that you'd like this user to have. You can do things like access company account permissions. So this is going to be more geared towards administrators that you want to be able to run reports or make changes to the account. Files and folders are an important one. So create root level folders. By default, it's going to be turned on. So Ricardo showed earlier, there is a shared folder section and there's a personal folder. So everybody gets a personal folder by default, but creating root level shared folders, you may want to keep that limited just to keep everything clean. So these are going to be folders that are directly under shared folders, top level. Once you drill down into the folders within the shared folders, the permissions are a little bit more lenient, but this is going to be top level folders. Personal FileBox is another important one, and we'll actually talk about this in a little bit. The FileBox is actually required if you want to use the Outlook plugin. That's going to be kind of where files are stored temporarily, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Access other users' file boxes and sent items. This is really up to you. That's more of an administrative setting there. E-signature, if you do have premium license, you do have right signature. So this will allow you to enable users to send documents for e-signature. Going down to people, we have manage clients. So this is a user can create clients and manage the current clients. Manage employees is more administrative. Edit shared address book. These are all pretty self-explanatory. Being able to edit address books, distribution groups, and other shared distribution groups. Manage super user group, that should only be set to administrators only. And going down through the rest of this is more on the administrative side. These are not going to be on by default, but editing the branding and the company logo and things like that, that will be in here. Billing details, the storage zone connectors, if you have multiple storage zones, you can give someone access to manage those. So the bottom section here is really kind of reserved for more administrative capabilities. So we'll just, for now, we will leave these off. When creating a user, you can also do file and folder management. So this is just some expiration and retention policies, and also setting a storage limit per user. That can be set here. And then storage location. Most of the time, you won't be changing this. If you're using an on-premise storage zone, you could change the settings here, or if you have multiple storage zone locations in the cloud, you can set those here as well. And step 3 here just gives you the ability to assign folders or add these users directly to a distribution group. And quickly, just a distribution group is just it's like a category. So if you have a bunch of users that all need the same permissions, you can create a distribution group and put those users in there, and then apply the distribution group to a folder instead of going one by one. All right, so we'll go ahead and create, and we won't assign any folders for now, so we'll continue anyway. And you can also send a copy of this email to yourself if you want to just see what it says. We'll say notify. And so that's pretty much it for creating an employee user. Like I said, there's this manual way of doing it. You can also use a user management tool for doing Active Directory, but that'll be talked about in another webinar. I think we do have some that go over that as well. So moving on here down in the folders tab, we do have FileBox. So FileBox, you can think of this like a basket on top of a filing cabinet. So it's a temporary kind of staging area for a few different features in ShareFile. It's where file drops are. So if you have a public link for users to upload files, by default, these are going to go into the file box. And like I said earlier, it's also a requirement for using the Outlook plugin. So if you request files, by default, files will go into this file box. Also, if you send an email with an attachment from your local PC, those files by default will go into the file box. So it's really just a staging area. It does have a retention of 180 days, and this is an account-wide setting. So this cannot be changed on a per user basis. So after the 180 days, those files are purged.
Yeah, and I was going to say real quick, Greg, the reason, and specifically for the Outlook plugin, the reason those files have to come into the file box is because the file itself cannot be encrypted until it's established on our platform. And this is essentially where that file gets established on our platform. The encrypted link is created through Outlook, and from that point, you can share the document.
Good point. So if I'm in Outlook, I have the ShareFile plugin here. When I go to attach or request files, I can actually go into use custom settings, and you can see here by default, the upload location is the file box. So if you wanted to change that, you can, but just know by default, it's going to be going to that file box. Right. And also one other thing I wanted to kind of touch on with FileBox, it's a little different than a normal folder. So there's not going to be any versioning. So if you have a file in there and you upload a file of the same name, it's not going to set it as a new version, right? It's going to set those as unique files. So just wanted to kind of note that it's not really designed to be a place to store files long term. It's really just a staging area to get those files that you're interacting with the Outlook plugin or the file drops, things of that nature. Recycle bin, pretty straightforward. There's going to be where files that you delete go. The default 45 days, that files will stay in the recycle bin before they're permanently deleted. Right. So going down here, another thing we'll highlight today is Inbox. So Inbox, this is a place for tracking where you send files and file requests, as well as things that are sent to you. So if you receive a request for files, it will show up there. It allows you to kind of manipulate the expiration on links if you have sent a file out to view, or you've sent a request out there. So we don't have anything right now, since this is kind of our demo account. We have a couple expired things, but let me actually go into my personal ShareFile here, and I'll kind of just show you Inbox. I do have a number of things that I've sent in here. So these can also be encrypted emails. Those will be listed in your sent messages as well. So you can kind of see here that we do have I do have a number of things that I've sent out, just test documents. I've sent a encrypted email, and you can see the expiration on these. You can also drill down directly into these. You can revoke access if maybe you set it for 180 days and you want to change that, maybe make it shorter. Anything received can be archived, but sent items are not going to be archivable. So anything you've received that you want to archive, and you don't want those to be hit a retention policy and be removed, because I believe that's 60 days on these items, you can archive them so they stay on your account. Right. So we went through creating a client using our accelerated agreements. But let's say we just want to create a client folder manually. We can also do that by going into shared folders. Actually, I'm going to switch back to our demo account. Create a folder for a new client. We can add people to this folder. You also have the option to use a template and change the storage zone if you have that available. So we'll just create a quick folder. And this is where you'll give folder permissions. And directly from here, you can actually add a client user instead of going into people, client, and creating them. If you just want someone on the outside to get access to this folder, you can type in this information here, first, last, email, and company. You have some additional options here. You can notify added users, and you can also apply the settings to subfolders, which basically mean any folder created underneath this folder that this user would have access to. So once we have those folders, we're going to talk about real quick just sharing a basic file and requesting a file. We can come into our client folder here. So you can upload files that you want to work with. We also have drag and drop directly in there. So what we'll do, say we've got this one here. And we want to let this client know about our business. So although that they're probably already in this folder and they have access to see these files, let's say they don't have access and we want to just send them this file for viewing. We can simply select the file that we want to share. We can create a link. We can edit the options. We have view only. We have view and download. If they can download, they can view it. Who can access this link? Client and employee users. This is a sign-in required. You have other options if you want to make it anonymous. That doesn't require any authentication. They can just view the file. You can change the access options. So this will show up on in your inbox when you do set an expiration here. So we'll just say after 3 months. Always link to the latest version of file. If there are multiple files or multiple versions of this file, this option will always link to that latest version. Any changes that you make, you want to just keep that file always updated to the client. You can also notify you when the access is linked, or you can add a company watermark. So we'll create. And so now we have an anonymous link that we can send out, or we can send to specific people directly to this file. So next we'll do requesting a file. So within this folder, if we wanted to request some additional files from the client, it's as simple as going to the plus sign, requesting files. File location here is the folder that we're in, Greg client. We can just generate a link, or we can send to specific people. So if you wanted to send this to, maybe there are some other people that are going to be joining this folder, you can add them here. You can put a message, and then you can simply request it. So we will actually search for Greg client. This one says that has requested a file. And you can simply upload that file. And then it goes directly into that folder. And the last thing we'll touch on here, or for this section, is we're going to actually send a signature from a folder. So like I said, we did kind of the easy way last time, but let's say you're just building out this client folder manually and you want to send out a document for signature. It's actually, we're going to create a new one here. So we'll delete this file. And we'll take a new one here, drag it. So this is a contract that we want to send out directly from this folder. We can send for signature, but also you can select the item here, send for signature. And same process as before, this will go through preparing the document. We can say who needs to get this. You can add another signer. You can add yourself. You can also integrate with other contexts, other services. For now, we'll just go ahead and place fields. Same thing as before. We'll just add a signature field for the sake of time. We'll review. Just want to highlight a couple options down here. You do have expiration. You can set a passcode, just adds another level of security that you call this client and give them the passcode for. KVA is a knowledge base authentication. So if you've ever signed a document that has an extra step that asks you some questions just to verify who you are, and then if you'd like to tag it to search for this document later, we'll go ahead and send. Same thing as before. It's the same process, just done manually. So you still have all the same options to download the document. And once it's completed, you can download the whole signed document. Right. So now we'll switch back over to Ricardo, and he's going to go over some personal settings and the admin settings. So thank you.
Okay, 1 second. Everyone should be seeing my webinar demo account. And as Fred mentioned, we're going to go over personal settings and admin settings. But before I do that, I do want to show you one really helpful area, and that's down here to the bottom right. This little S icon. When you click on this, this provides a lot of great resources. Similar to the tutorials area, we can get resources for strictly on getting started. We can find out what's new, what's up and coming. So like Delia said earlier, we have a lot of new features coming up. So this is a great area to get more information on those features. And then we have our support articles area, which provides knowledge base articles for activities that are performed in ShareFile and any other questions you may have about ShareFile. So just wanted to note that before we move forward. But as Greg said, on the left-hand side here, all the way down to the bottom, we have settings, and then we have our personal settings and our admin settings. When we go into personal settings, we're first presented with editing the profile. And this is strictly for you as the user. This is not a global change. This is just for the user themselves. So the first, we have our name and company details. So I've entered my first and last name. I have ShareFile Webinar as my company. And if I wanted to, I could upload a profile picture that would show, essentially it's going to show here on the dashboard, right in this area. As we scroll down, I can change my password at any time, but as long as I'm following these requirements, it's going to have your requirements listed below. And underneath that, I can edit email addresses. I can add alias emails. As you guys see here, I have 2 email addresses sort of tied to this account, and I recently changed it to @ShareFile from @Citrix, but I could still use the @Citrix domain to log into this particular account. I would just need to use the same password that I created that's tied to @ShareFile. So in short, the same password is going to work for both of these. Underneath that, we have email notifications. So again, this is for the user itself, not global. So at this point, I have my email notifications every 15 minutes as far as my frequency, and my default language is English. But if we pull up the drop down, if you don't like receiving emails in real time, if you'd like to keep your email box a little clean, you may want to choose once a day or twice a day. Once a day is essentially going to give you an email every 24 hours of all the activity that's taken place within the ShareFile account on any folder that you have selected to receive notifications for. And as far as bounce backs, right now I have it selected for no, but if I did change it to yes, say I were to email a recipient and they were no longer with a particular company, or they've changed their email domain, I would get a bounce back saying that something along the line has changed and I cannot deliver this email to that individual. And time and date, pretty self-explanatory here. I'm on the Eastern Coast, so I have mine set to Eastern time. My daylight observes US, Canada, and the format of my date is just month, day, year, your traditional 12-hour format here. So this will be a good area to make those changes. So we'll move on to admin settings. Now, right here is the admin overview, the first thing you're seeing. And as the master admin, I'm getting a little bit more information than your traditional employee user would. I guess the main thing that's different is I have the ability to reassign the account owner. So if you're not a master admin, you're not going to see this area. Well, you will see this area, but you won't see reassign account owner. You'll just see who the account owner is. It's going to give you the name of the account ID. And again, this is really important when calling into support. I would keep this handy. And if you're having to create a support ticket for anything, make sure you're noting this on the account, because that helps the technical support agent investigate from their end using this particular ID here. It's going to tell you your billing type. And you'll get an allocation of how many licenses you are using versus how many you actually own. At this point, there's 34 out of 100 employee licenses being used for ShareFile, but only 29 out of those 100 are actually signed up for e-signature. All right. Towards the bottom here for our enterprise customers, it's going to list the entitlement that will show you the amount of seats you have for ShareFile and the plan description to the far right here, and essentially how long that lasts. Next, we have background operations. There are some things that take place on the back end that you may not see. And one I can think of specifically is reassigning folders. And a good example of this would be if I were to delete a user and they have a set of folders that they own, it's going to ask me, who do I want to reassign those folders to? By default, it's going to be the master admin listed. And let me show you really quick. Let me go into people. Delete from system. Here we go. So at this point, by default, you're seeing me, the master admin listed, but I can change this user. I can search another employee user that's in the account and have them listed there if I didn't want those folders to be reassigned to the master admin. The reason we list the master admin by default is because they already have access to a majority or all of the folders anyway. So once you delete that user and reassign them, what you would see in the background operations is essentially a description of those items being reassigned. You'll see that in this area here. And then once it's obviously completed or done, you'll see that listed down here. Next, under background operations, we have company account info. We have reporting. And there was a question out there about tracking what's being deleted from the FileBox or what's being moved. The best, or my recommendation would be to generate a report. And what you could do is you could create a report, you could choose usage, you could click next, and then under activity, you could choose the type of activity you want that report to distribute. So if I want to check on what's being moved, I would deselect everything except for move. If I wanted to do it for the entire account, I can use that. If I knew the specific user I wanted to do a report on, all I need to do is change to user and type in their email address. Or if I knew the name of the specific folder, I can change it to folder and select it from the drop down here. You can do a custom report, but these reports only go in 90-day increments. So just keep that in mind. And at the bottom underneath the report here, we have recurring, where if you wanted to generate this on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, you would just click yes, and it would generate that report over and over. Having it set to no is just a one-time option, and the type of document you want the report to finalize with, you could choose that option as well. The type of applications we work with. To get to those, in the top right-hand corner, you're going to click on apps. And the cool thing about this is, depending on the type of environment you're in, that's what you'll see listed first. Because I'm on a PC, I see Windows. If I were to be on a Mac, I would see apps for Mac at the top. The main two applications that we see being utilized are ShareFile for Windows, which essentially generates a virtual drive within your Windows Explorer that connects to your ShareFile account. This lessens the time of having to log in through the web app. It's always up and running in the background. So we just go to like any other drive on On your computer, you would go to Windows Explorer, choose the blue S, and here's a good example. As I pull it over, as you can see, as I scroll down, I have the blue S here. It's giving me my personal folders, shared folders area. And then when you open those up, you have different other, these are other folders within another ShareFile account I'm working with. So it gives you that folder structure like you would see within the web app here. The other one is ShareFile for Outlook. As Greg showed you earlier, you could integrate your account through Outlook, allowing you to create those encrypted links, whether you're sharing a document or requesting a document. And it also allows you to generate encrypted emails for the body of the text as well.
Yep, and kind of going off what you were talking about, the ShareFile for Windows, you have a lot of the same functions and features. So if you wanted to, open up your File Explorer, you're just more comfortable working in that, and you want to send a file directly there, you can actually right-click an item, and you get some ShareFile specific context features available to you. So if you wanted to send a file, you can right-click right from your File Explorer, and you have the options to do kind of the same thing that you would do through the web app. So really nice feature.
And again, for Mac, the same thing, just for Mac environments. We have ShareFile for Mac, ShareFile for Outlook. Our mobile apps are pretty straightforward. Third-party integrations, Zapier is more of a accounting CRM that can be integrated, and a Microsoft Online integration.
And one other question I just want to touch on before we end, Suzanne had a question about moving files from the FileBox. Ricardo, if you want to just bring up the FileBox, I don't know if you have anything in there, but when files are in there, you can simply select a file and you'll get an option to move. So if you wanted to move a file from the FileBox directly into a folder, yep, there we go. You go to more and you can move it directly into another, either a personal folder or another shared folder. Hope that answers your question. But yes, if you use the Outlook plugin a lot, you will have a number of files start popping up there. So yes, it's a great staging place, but they do need a final resting place.
So now if I go into repository, I should see that test document. There it is.
All right, well, we are at time. We have so many webinars that will be coming out in the next couple months. So we're super excited about it, but we'll always have these getting started with ShareFile. So you're welcome to join them, as many as you'd like, as often. All right, you guys, thank you so much and have a great one.